So welcome everyone for this week's edition of the Brazilian Algebraic Geometry Seminar. I ask everyone to turn off their microphones, but only the speaker with the microphone on. And it's a pleasure to introduce André Contiero from the Federal University of Minas Gerais, UFMG. He's going to talk about curves and Weierstrass points. André, please.
So, thank you, Marcos. Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to talk here, and all of you guys that are here. So, thank you. So, let us start. I will talk about two works in progress. The first one is about non-negative graded Weierstrass points. I will explain the title in a few minutes. It's a work joint with Isla Fontes, Ian Stevens, and John Vargas. And the second one, it's about complete intersection monomial curves and Weierstrass points. The title is Curves and Weierstrass points. So this work it's a work in progress, joint with Sara Mazzini. So, okay, they are related. I will explain this. Okay, the main object of interest here is the moduli of pointed curves with prescribed Weierstrass point at the marked point. So you can consider this space as a subset of the moduli space of pointed curves. Curves here are smooth. And just recalling that Weierstrass semigroup, that take a curve, the Weierstrass semigroup at P is the set of the non-negative integers and such that there is a holomorphic function, a meromorphic function, such that its polydivisor is exactly NP. And the gap sequence is just the elements that are missing from S. Okay, the genus of the semigroup is just the number of the gaps. And we say that P is a Weierstrass point if the gap sequence is different from the ordinary one, that is 1, 2, and so on until G. Okay, MG, this space, this subset can be empty. Yes, if you want, you can see the Bushweight criterion and also the Fernando Torres PhD test for some examples. But when this space is not empty, he is locally closed in the moduli space of pointed curves. And so you get a compactification of the, a stratification of the moduli space of pointed curves. Okay. So what are my main questions here is, what is the dimension of the moduli space, of this moduli space? And what about the geometry of this moduli space? Geometry, I mean rationality, reducible components, and so on. Okay, anything else? Oh, okay, so now some timeline about concerning the dimension of the moduli space that I am interested. So there are two beautiful results about the dimension of this moduli space. The first one, the oldest one, is this upper bound given by Deligne and Pinken that we call Deligne-Pinken's upper bound. That you take together the Lingen's formula in SGA 7.2 plus the PhD thesis of Pinken, then you get this beautiful upper bound for the dimension of the space. And lambda s is just the number of gaps of, so you have to fix a semigroup, and then lambda s is just the number of gaps that L plus any non-negative non-gap is in S, is in your semigroup. And on the other hand, we have a lower bound given by Pfluger 2 years ago. Note that 3 times G minus 2 is just the dimension of the modular space of pointed curves. And the effective weight here is this number. Then you take a minimal system of generators of your semigroup and take this number, this sum over all gaps, run over all gaps. Then you choose generator that are less than the gap. So you take these two numbers here, we have a lower bound. Now, if this space is not empty, then we have this lower bound, and we have here an upper bound given by the linear pin. These are two beautiful and useful lower and the upper bounds, two bounds for the dimension of this space. Okay. Okay, it's important to remark that Pfluger's bound improves a previous Eisenbud-Harris lower bound. Then the Eisenbud-Harris lower bound is to try 3 times the genus 3G minus 2, where here is the classical weight. That is just the sum of Li minus I that you sum over the gaps, runs over the gaps. And okay, the above two bounds are attained. I mean, the lower and the upper bound are attained. The lower bound are given by Pfluger and the upper bound given by Delaney-Pinker. But these two bounds are also both at the same time not attained. For example, Castelnuovo semigroups that was introduced and studied by Nathan Pfluger in another paper, that are semigroups just like that. You choose two positive integers, R and D, such that D is bigger than 2 times R minus 1. I believe that here is plus, but okay, but this is a numerical semigroup. And this kind of semigroup provides bounds that, if you compute the dimension of the modular space associated to this semigroup, and the both boundaries, lower and upper, are bad. And another class of semigroups is some symmetric semigroup generated by less than 5 elements. I will return to these two beautiful classes soon in this talk. So, but okay, this means that we have more work to do here. In both cases, the upper bound and the lower bound. Now, there is an important, at least for me, result. It was also given by Pfluger. That say that his lower bound coincide with Delaney-Pinker's upper bound if and only if S is negatively graded. Okay, I will say that what means a semigroup to be negatively graded, but before here we have a theorem given by him and Vituli that they classified, or more precisely, they list all the semigroups that are negatively degraded, and they also proved that if S is negatively graded, then the dimension of the moduli space is exactly the upper bound given by Delaney-Pinkham. And so if you have a lower bound, so it's just fair to compare with this exact dimension in this case. So Plouffe did this, and they coincide in all, in this case, when S is negatively graded. And okay, that's, I will say what is, what means a semigroup to be is negatively graded, to be negatively graded. So recalling the cotangent complex, let's see the projective reducible curve. And if C is smooth, we have this exact sequence, or the tangent is the usual one, exact sequence. If C is not smooth, you can take the co-curve of this map here, and you produce the first model of the cotangent complex. Oh, but the co-curve coincide with the cotangent complex in this particular case for projective reducible curves. In general, it's not true, but in this case, we can take this as the definition of the cotangent complex. And it is a Skyscraper sheaf supported on the singularities of C, of course, because otherwise you have this exact sequence. So we also can think in terms of derivations. We'll assume that C is an affine curve. Just recall that we can think in terms of k-derivations. The tangent bundle is the model of k-derivations if you take an affine curve. Okay, and this is the case when you take a semigroup of G no G bigger than 0, and we set T1 of S, the first model of cotangent complex associated to this numerical semigroup, the first model of the cotangent complex associated to the affine curve spec of K of S, or even the cotangent complex associated to this K algebra here, K of S. And it's very simple to parameterize this affine monomal curve. Is just this. You take any system of generators, not necessarily minimal. And you can see that the first model of the cotangent complex is a KS torsion graded moduli of finite dimension over Q of the ground field. And so the definition is that if S is negative graded, if there is no elements of positive degree, just this. Okay, you can find in the PEG test of Pink a geometrical meeting of the not only in the PEG test of Pink, but also in the PEG test of Schlesinger. A geometrical meaning is that the first model of the cotangent complex of this affine curve is just the tangent space of the versal deformation space of the affine monomal curve. The versal deformation space we can think as a cone, as a affine cone, and the vertex of this cone is just the monomal curve. Okay, now we have a new lower bound that it's a work in progress together, Isla Fontes, Ian Stevens, and John Vargas. Okay, that if you assume that the moduli space of pointed curve with prescribed Weierstrass semigroup at the market point is not empty, then we have this lower bound here. Note that here we have the Deligne-Pincus upper bound, and then you take this number here. Then we provide a new lower bound for the dimension of the model space. It's curious because I always thought that this number here was not a lower bound, but an upper bound for the dimension of this space. But fortunately, thanks to Ian Steve, I was wrong. So this number is a lower bound for the dimension of this modular space. Okay, we have a lemma that our lower bound is never smaller than the lower bound given by Nathan Pfluger. A proof of that, you have to use the, Buchweiz is wrong here, sorry. You take the Buchweiz description of the cotangent complex for monomer curves, and then you proceed by induction on the genus of the semigroup S. So you can prove this. It's not hard to prove this, but you can do something. And some remarks. So, okay, it's totally clear that our bound is equal to Deligne-Pincus 1, just because this is, the first term here is the Deligne-Pincus upper bound, and they are equal if and only if S is negative graded, because this number here must be 0. And there are families of semigroup where the inequality here occurs. For example, if you take this symmetric semigroup generated by 6, 7, and 15, it has genus 12. Proof bonds provide the number 17. The Deligne-Pincus bound is far from the exact dimension, is 23, and our bound is exactly the dimension of the modular space. So now, if you have one example, you can do this. You take the multiplicity 6, that is the first known zero element of your semigroup, and then you take 1 plus 6 times tau, 9 plus 6 times tau, and tau is bigger than 0. Then you can produce another good bounds for the dimension of this space. In all of this family, our bound provides the exactly dimension of the modular space for all these example here, this family of symmetric semigroups. Okay. So we have an improvement of the lower bound given by Pfluger. Okay, but more remarks. It's clear that if the modular space is not of pure dimension, then our lower bound is not a tiny. It's because we have a lower bound for the dimension. So the biggest component is not a tiny. That is the dimension of the modular space. Till now, Castelnove semigroups studied by Pfluger are the unique, that I know, examples where the modular space is not of pure dimension. So it's a beautiful, beautiful work. Do it to Pfluger. Okay, I will, more details coming soon in this talk. And in many examples where, if you take a Castelnove semigroup, which has two components, our bound is equal to the dimension of the smallest component. So I don't know how to prove it yet, but I think maybe I was wrong because I did some examples and I don't know. I have to work more on this subject, but I have a feeling that in some cases this is true. Okay, more remarks. Oh, last week I found a new class of numerical semigroups. You take two Castelnove semigroups together. Here we have a Castelnove semigroup, and then you take a gap with R elements here between G plus 1 until G plus R minus 1. R, you choose bigger than 3, and G, which is the genus of this numerical semigroup, must be bigger or equal to 3 times R plus 1. Oh, it's a symmetrical semigroup of genus G, where the Pfluger's bound is less than our. But this is not so good because if you compute these two bounds, they are negative, both for suitable R and G. But so this means nothing. Okay. Oh, some useful information, because these two bound here, our bound and Pfluger bounds, cannot be used as a criterion to a semigroup to be or not a Weierstrass semigroup. That means that to be or not realized as a Weierstrass semigroup as a smooth curve, because if you take the first example of a realizable semigroup in genus 16 given by Buchweiz, these two bound heres are positive, but the space is empty. So it's not a criterion to decide if a numerical semigroup is or not a Weierstrass semigroup. Okay, now I do like to sketch the proof of the theorem A, that is this theorem here. And okay, let's start this sketch this proof. The first thing is that you have to have in mind the Pinker's construction of the modular space of pointed curves with prescribed Weierstrass semigroup at the market point. His construction requires a subspace U in negative degrees. And so we have to have in mind this construction. Then you take the versal deformation space of the monomial curve associated to the semigroup, the numerical semigroup S, and add that. We know that this versal deformation space is an affine space, is a cone, is a fine cone, and you add that this number of linear equation in order that we intersect this subspace in negative degrees. This is important it's important to note that for this argument works is that our modular space must be non-empty, because the construction fails and everything gonna down is short. So it's important that we have this condition. here that our modular space is non-empty. And then you have to use the linked formula, the same that is the same that SGA 7.2, that assure that each component of our modular space can be not greater than the dimension, the expected dimension of the modular space, that is 2 times G minus 2 plus lambda S minus this, well, this number here that you have to intersect this number of linear equations. So this is the idea of the proof. So I know that here I presented to you an unreadable sketch, but believe me, the idea is here. Okay, this is the proof. Now, the second timeline is about some geometry of the modular space that I am interested. Okay, sorry. That's okay. No. Oh, the first result was provided by Nakano, Evan Bullock, and myself and Isla Fontes. That inside these papers, there is the result stated here. Okay? If you take a look in these 3 papers, this state was inside this paper. The modular space is stable rational for every numerical semigroup of genus not bigger than 6, with a unique possible exception that is this semigroup of genus 5. I should try to perform this unique exception, but okay, I really don't want to do it now because it's just an example. I mean, shame on me, but I don't want to do this now. But this is maybe a unique possible exception. Okay. Oh, great. Here, this is in Mathematical Journal of Japan, Proceedings of MS, and now you can take this paper. The last line of the paper, you can see this on archive, is about this state here that I stated you, which was stated here. Okay, now for me, the most beautiful result about the geometry of this modular space was given by Pruger also. That is this, take a Castelnuovo semigroup with D bigger than 2 times R plus 1, so you choose an integer positive R, and then D that is bigger than 2 times R. And if R is bigger than 3 and R minus 1 divides D minus 1, or if R is equal to 5 and D is even, then the modular space that we are interested has exactly 2 irreducible components of different dimensions. That means that my lower bound and the proof of lower bound is not a tiny. Otherwise, this modular space is irreducible, and Pruger computed the dimension of these 2 components. You take M, the quotient of the division of D minus 1 by R minus 1, and one component has dimension G plus 2 times M minus 2, and another component you have to add R minus 3. So there are different if you take R bigger than 4, of course. So for me, it's the beautiful result about the geometry. Okay. Oh. Now, okay, another deep result. Take a symmetric semigroup generated by less than 5 elements. I mean, let us minimally generate by A1, A2, A3, A4, or A1, A2, A3, and so on. Generate by less than 5 elements and symmetric semigroup. So now you take a lot of classical results. First is the Pinkham equivariant deformation theory plus a quasi-homogeneous version of the books by Eisenberg, the structured theorem for Gorenstein ideals of codimension 3. And one can see it's not easy, believe me. Carlos too told me about this result. One can deduce that the affine monomial curve, CS, can be negatively smoothed without any obstructions. And hence, we have a compactification of this space that is exactly the projectivization of this. There is a mistake here, but sorry. A misprint. Of this vector space, that is the vector space given by the cotangent, the negative graded part of the cotangent complex associated to the symmetry, in this case, semigroup S. And so, okay, our result in this direction is that. So take S, numerical symmetric numerical semigroup, such that the affine monomial curve associated to S is complete intersection in the minimal embedded affine space. That means that you take a minimal system of generators of S, A1, AR, and this curve is complete intersection in the affine space of dimension R. So if this curve is complete intersection in this affine space, then the moduli space of pointed curves with prescribed device or semigroups is exactly as above. The projectivization of the cotangent, the negative graded part, of the cotangent complex, And here, the compactification is done by allowing Gorenstein singularities at the border. So, as a byproduct, if S is complete intersection as above and symmetric, then it's this semigroup is realized as a Weierstrass semigroup, and of course, this followed by the PhD test of Pinkham, that the affine monomial curve, that associated affine monomial curve, can be negatively smoothable. So is a byproduct here. Some remarks. First, there is no characterization of numerical semigroups that are completely intersection, even symmetric. There is in literature some papers addressed to classify numerical semigroups that are complete intersection until the affine space of dimension 4. But here we have a problem because our theorem talk about symmetric semigroups, as you can see here. And now we already know that this space, so I have to provide some examples of complete intersection symmetric semigroups generate minimally by 6, 7, and so on, 5 elements, sorry, 5, 6, and so on. So the smallety genus that is generated minimally by 5 elements is 32, And the next, generated minimally by 6 elements is of genus AT. So it's not easy to find this, but there is a system called gap system that Sarah told me that is incredible. We found it. In fact, Sarah found these 2 examples using the system, gap system. Oh, okay, but if you find one that is complete intersection, then you have infinite many them. Just doing this, you can create a family of symmetric semigroup that are complete intersection. So if you find one, of course that here the genus is bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So, but the smallest genus with 5 elements is 32. Okay? So the proof of this theorem here, we have 2 proofs of this theorem that I will explain here. The first approach is the following. Let me take my paper here. Okay, but so first you fix a minimal system of generators of S, then there is here a characterization when S is symmetric. That means that lambda S is equal to 1 if and only if S is symmetric. But in this theorem, S is always symmetric, so we know how to compute lambda S. Now you take the construction given by Stur of the moduli space of pointed curves. He take, assuming that S is non-hyperelliptic, then you can embed our monomial curve as a canonical curve in PG minus 1, then you can deform it. And he proved that the moduli, a compactification of this moduli space is a closed subset of the projectivization of the negative graded part of the cotangent complex associated to S. And now, if we assume that CS is complete intersection, then the canonical curve associated is locally complete intersection, because it has just one singular point. And now you take a look of the Hartmann's book, the theorem set point 7.11, and we can compute the difference between the degree of the normal sheaf and the degree of the restricted tangent sheaf. That is exactly 2 times the genus minus 2. Okay, C here is our canonical Gorstan curve. Monomial curve, Gorstan curve here in PG minus 1. Now, you take our exact sequence, take the Euler characteristic, and we can compute the dimension of the cotangent complex. That is exactly 2 times the genus minus 2. The dimension of all the cotangent complex, the first model of the cotangent complex is 2 times genus minus 2, but you can divide it in 2 in the negative graded part and the positive graded part, and you have this formula here. And now the work is done because, here, now you just use the theorem because you have here a closed subspace of this space that has the same dimension of the ambient space. So they are equals. So we have a proof of our theorem. But the first approach hides some elegance of the Stur techniques that I will try to explain now. Because if you take a complete intersection monomer curve here in this CS in the affine space of dimension R, you fix a Pyramidon basis for this cohomology model where W is just the dualizing sheaf. P is a Weierstrass semigroup that realized the semigroup S as a Weierstrass semigroup. And then you take, as you know, since this curve, this monomial curve here in the space of dimension R, in the affine space of dimension R, is complete intersection, take R minus 1 generators, and use the approach, the technique described in a paper of mine to get joint with Carlot's tool. And then you take the unfold. I will explain what is the unfold of each generators. Now a miracle happens, because if you read this paper here, my paper joint with Carlot's tool, there is some contribution of syzygius, but a miracle happens, there is no contribution of syzygius. So that means that we can deform without any obstructions. And so we can normalize to 0 R times R minus 1 over 2 coefficients given by the unfold of each polynomial here, Fi, and then it's done. Because the moduli space is the projectivization of the vector space, the K vector space, given by the normalized coefficients given by the unfold of these polynomials here. And you can prove that this K vector space is in bijection with the negative graded part of the first model of the cotangent complex. And let me just explain how to unfold a form here. I will. Okay. Can you see, guys, my blackboard?
No,
yes, it's blinking.
Here?
Yeah, it's
the unfold. Can you see?
Yeah, but it's blinking. Things are in and out, like the N in PN. Sometimes it appears, sometimes it doesn't.
Oh. What?
André, você está compartilhando só uma tela. O que você mostrar em outra não vai aparecer.
Oh, okay, that's.
Você tem que compartilhar outra tela agora.
Okay, I will stop the presentation and do this. Okay, and now?
Yes, it's coming up. Yeah, we see it.
Yeah. This is an example of a symmetrical semigroup of genus 4. Then here we have one generator of the affine monomer curve in the affine space of dimension 3. Here the variables has weight. The degree of x4 is 4 and degree of x5 is 5 and so on. So this guy here is one of the generators. Then the unfold is this polynomial here. Note that this polynomial here, the generator has degree 10, and The next has degree 9, 8, 6, 5, 4, and 0. That are the elements in the semigroup that are less from 10. So this is the unfold. And how to normalize, you have this freedom to change your variables in order to keep your basis, your base for that. We fix a permission basis of the cohomology model of the dualizing sheaf and dualizing sheaf and so on. We have this freedom to change. So maybe here I take X4 here, and I can normalize to 0 this coefficient here, C4, for example. Then I don't have this freedom, and so on. Is that is this that we take the unfold and the normalization? So I will take the presentation again. Here, and okay, so this is the last time that I found Fernando Torres, and it was about 1 year ago. And so my work on Weierstrass point was influenced, and numerical semigroup was influenced by him too. So I offered this talk and this work to the memory of Fernando. And so that's it. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your patience. So thank you.
Are there any questions for André?
So, I'm here. Can you see me, Marcos? Okay, great.
Ô, André.
Sim.
Você coloca lá naquele teorema que você provou que passaram, que é do caso de interseção completa?
Okay, a theorem here. Just a minute, I have to do this again. Okay. The first version or the second version? What? There is something. Oh, something has been. Something doesn't work here. Just a minute. My computer is crazy. Okay. Here. So, what's going on here? I will close it and open again. Sorry, guys, but just a minute. My computer's totally crazy now. No. This one.
Certo.
Okay, are you talking about the proof of this theorem?
Bom,
Okay.
Se eu entendi direito, a ponto-chave é que essa diferença seja 2G, né? A diferença
Sim.
do grau do normal da curva e o grau do tangente restrito. Dá para generalizar isso aí, né? Dá para generalizar.
Yeah, we can generalize this theorem, but here it's important that because we can generalize these, of course, because we can but here the idea was to compute the dimension of the first model of the cotangent complex, and if you know the degree, the difference of this, the degree of these two sheaves, you can compute the dimension. And I know the dimension when the exact dimension when the curve is complete intersection. But if the curve is not complete intersection, the difference of the degrees must involve some invariants that depends on the cotangent complex. So in this case, the difference depends only on the genus. This is amazing. This is exactly what we want here. This is the idea. But if you take the Euler characteristic in this section, in this exact sequence here, we can compute the degree in terms of the cotangent complex, and the other is invariants. But I want to compute the dimension of the first model of the cotangent complex. And in this case, we can compute. This is the main idea. So, and this proof only works for symmetric semigroup, as maybe because we know that this moduli space is inside this space here, and the dimension of this space is, in this case, is exactly equals to the dimension of the whole space. So they are equal. Yeah, this is. But this was the main idea to this approach. But the second one, I think, is more elegant, because you don't need the theorem A, and you can deform by yourself with your hands. Okay, you take the forms, the R minus one forms that degenerate or ideal, and you take them fold, and okay, this I can normalize these guys to 0 and this and this and this. Okay, so this is your moduli space. The work is done. It's incredible. So I prefer this proof, but I mean this proof is shorter than that, because here you have to explain more things. But here, no. If you take just the statement of this theorem, just the statement of theorem A, and a theorem for Hartmann's book. So that's okay. It's not so difficult to see that the proofs works. But I prefer the second one.
Okay.
But I don't know what version Sarah Mazzini prefers.
More questions?
André?
See?
It's Josué.
Hi, José. How are you?
Hi. Fine, thank you. I have a small question. You said somewhere that there is some moduli space which is stably rational.
Yeah.
Do you know how it has been proved? How what is the argument? If it's not so.
You take it. You list all the numerical semigroups and do one by one. You can work with one symmetric semigroup by one, and there is some in the first article here. Well, can you see my presentation or not?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, this. Let me. This paper here, from Nakano, he he put it in a computer and provided the equations of the moduli space, and he can prove this. This is because of course the genus is finite here, 6. Then you can list all the semigroups and do one by one. So this is not the, I mean, the better thing to do, but because this is not a theorem, but if you take a look in these 3 papers, we can find this statement here. But it's a crazy because it's crazy because
the proof is computational.
You put in a computer. Yeah, this is the.
It's stably rational and not rational, or what? How that something stably rational and not prove that?
Yeah, because I proved some space that are rational, but I only did this for symmetric semigroups. If S here is symmetric, then it's rational. But I don't know how to prove that is stable rational but not rational. I don't know about this. Because Evan Bullock did this, stable rational. But Nakano proved that it was rational for some examples. Evan Bullock did for others, and I did for symmetric semigroups. But symmetric semigroups are rational, but I don't know explain or decide if it's rational or not in this case. I don't know. And for me, it's difficult because we have to implement this in a computer and make it so much computations. For me, sometimes it's hard because I don't know the program. I don't know the code of the program, and so I believe that this is true. But for symmetric semigroups, I can prove that all this space here until genus 6 are rational. But I don't know about the obstruction to prove that it is rational in other cases. But I don't know, Jorge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
More questions?
So I have a related question. Do you know, are there any known examples where the moduli space is non-rational? And do you have any control over the singularities? I mean, is it possible to write a canonical bundle or something like that?
Oh, I don't know, because when I take a numerical semigroup, for example, in genus 5, the dimension is big, and I just know moduli spaces when examples when it's rational, but not rational, I don't know. There is no example in the literature. I don't know an example of that when the moduli space is not rational. I don't know, but I believe if the genus is very, very big, it can be, because if you take...
I know one. Just take S to be the standard semigroup.
Oh, of course, the standard one. Yeah, yeah, great. Yeah, because in this case, this is the moduli space of pointed curves. That's right.
Yeah. So examples that aren't that, I guess.
But no ordinary examples, I don't know. But I think it's not true that all these moduli spaces are rational, because the construction, the Pinkas constructions of this moduli space is you take a fine cone with a bad singularity, and then you divide by the action of the multiplicative group of the ground field. So we expect that is, I don't know, I expect it is not rational at all. just for some examples, because I don't know, because if the genus of this the semigroup is not bigger, so you don't have so much space to deform the things. So I don't know, it's just a feeling, but if the genus is big, but the dimension of this space is bigger and bigger, so it's hard. I try to put in a computer, but in genus 13, but the computer was gone because they consumed all the RAM memory of my computer, and try to decide if it's rational or not. In the symmetric case, I don't know, but George is right. If you take the ordinary semigroup, so it's not rational. But
and I guess that if you just take the simplest possible semigroup, the one for reduced Weierstrass points, I guess that this should be
non-rational.
Non-rational, and that shouldn't be too hard to prove, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah,
Thanks.
I don't know how, but it's a guess. It's a hint to try to perform. I would like to perform also this kind of this class of semigroups, that our two bounds, the bounds are negative numbers. So I think here we can provide, because Castelnuovo semigroups, some Castelnuovo semigroups, there are two irreducible components, but here we can, I can try to perform this. I would like to think more about this class of here and try to repeat the arguments given by Nathan Flugel using Castelnuovo curves, because here the semigroup is symmetric, and so we can associate a Castelnuovo curve that realize this symmetric semigroup. Castelnuovo, a Gorenstein Castelnuovo curve. So
yeah, if S is just the standard semigroup, I think it's not hard to see that it dominates MG, right?
Sorry, George?
If you just take F to be the standard semigroup.
Yeah, yes.
Not the trivial, but the first one that appears there.
The first one, yeah. Okay.
I think that's not hard to see that this dominates MG. If you just forget everything, you dominate MG, and this already shows that's not rational, right? For
all right. So you are. I think you are right. Maybe it's not difficult. So it's a great idea, George. Thank you.
More questions, anyone? Okay, so let us thank André again.
So thank you guys. It's a pleasure to stop presentation here. Oh, great. I am completely done with this. Ciao, Israel.
Ciao, André. Obrigada.
Ciao, Carol.
Thank you for coming, and see you guys next week.
So thank you guys.